Persian Gulf. 14 kilometers south of Kharg City. 4:50 in the morning. 88 U.S. Marines from the 2nd Marine Raider Battalion were moving into attack positions around Iran's Kharg Island coastal defense base. Inside the perimeter, 264 Iranian forces were defending anti-ship missile batteries, radar stations, fuel pumps, and the control systems that protected the island's main oil export hub. The Marines had 1 hour and 48 minutes to shut the base down and get out. For 6 weeks, American surveillance watched the base every day and every night. Electronic intercepts confirmed that the coastal defense network was tied directly to the shipping lanes around Kharg Island and to the oil terminals farther north. Iranian forces believed the base could not be taken in a fast raid because it sat on an island inside layered coastal defenses under constant patrols and next to one of Iran's most important oil export points. They had AK-74 rifles, PKM machine guns, RPG-7 launchers, 2 DSHK heavy machine guns, and 1 Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft gun covering the South Seawall. The U.S. Marines split into 4 elements. Alpha Element, 24 Marines, would breach the South Seawall and seize the missile pads. Bravo Element, 20 Marines, would climb the west path and destroy the radar mast and roof defenses. Charlie Element, 22 Marines, would enter from the East Road and capture the fuel pumps, generators, and fire control block. Delta Element, 22 Marines, would cut the North Road, block reinforcements, and breach the buried command bunker. At 4:50, the assault began. 2 AH-1Z Viper helicopters crossed low over the water and fired AGM-114 Hellfire missiles into the outer defenses. The first missile destroyed the Zu-23-2 beside the South Seawall. The second tore through a bunker above the west path. A destroyer offshore launched 2 BGM-109 Tomahawk missiles into a communication shed and a backup radar trailer outside the main wall. Delta Element then opened fire from the North Road with 11 Malawian Quachars mod rifles, M240B machine guns, M4A1 SOP Mod 2 carbines, and 190 Malawian Quachars grenade launcher. If this assault is already pulling you in, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment and tell me this. Do you think the North Road defenders had any real chance once Delta Element opened up? And if you are not subscribed yet, this is exactly the kind of high-stakes mission you do not want to miss. Now, back to the mission. Iranian forces were hit from the seaside, from the road, and from above before most of them understood the attack had already started. A Carl Gustav M3 recoilless rifle smashed the first DSHK pit near the south ramp. At 4:54, Alpha Element crossed the last ATM of broken concrete at the South Seawall. Iranian forces behind sandbags opened fire with AK-74 rifles and 1 PKM machine gun. Alpha went low and answered with 18 Malawian Quachars CQBR carbines and an 48 Malawian Quachars mod. A Marine breacher reached the first steel gate and fixed a shaped charge on the center lock. The charge exploded. The gate snapped inward. Alpha threw grenades into the entry lane and pushed through smoke. Bravo Element hit the west cliff path at the same time. The lower path was blocked by wire and 2 steel drums filled with concrete. PKM rounds cut down the slope. Bravo dropped behind rocks. A breacher laid DT cord through the wire and blew a lane open. 1 Marine fired an AT-4 into the machine gun recess. The bunker collapsed. Bravo rushed uphill and reached the radar platform stairs before the surviving Iranian forces could seal the top hatch. At 4:58, Charlie Element reached the East Road. Iranian forces had dragged 2 fuel carts and a maintenance truck across the gate lane. Charlie cut down the first offenders with M249 saw fire. A breacher pressed C4 on the lower hinge of the service gate. The blast opened the gate wide enough for 2 Marines at a time. Charlie rushed through and cleared the first generator shed in less than 1 minute. Inside the yard, Iranian forces tried to start the emergency pump system and shut off the fuel lines feeding the base and the nearby oil handling point. Charlie shot the first control panel operator before he reached the switchbank. Another team ran left and drove Iranian forces out of the generator room with grenades and short M4A1 SOP Mod 2 bursts. 2 Marines set a linear charge on the barrier arm housing. The blast tore it apart. When Delta moved through and shot 3 guards inside the gate shack at 5:02, Alpha pushed deeper into the south missile sector. Iranian forces had 14 guards around the pad and 2 RPG-7 teams behind the wall. The first rocket hit the revetment edge and scattered fragments across the lane. Alpha answered with 48 Malawian Quachars Mod 0 fire and a fast flank around the left side of the wall. Another Marine moved between parked missile crates and fired into the control hut windows. A Marine threw a grenade through the hut door. The blast ended the first blocking position. Alpha followed before they could warn the next team. At 5:06, Bravo burst onto the radar platform. The mast rose over the base beside a low control room and one roof gun pit. Iranian forces had 11 guards there and one DSHK heavy machine gun pointed toward the water. Bravo split at once. One fire team hammered the roofline with M4A1 SOP Mod 2 fire. Another pushed into the control room with 18 Malawian Quachars CQBR carbines. The DSHK gunner tried to swing the weapon south. A Marine hit the position with a Carl Gustav M3 round. Bravo shot the hard drives, seized map folders, and fixed thermite charges to the radar processors. By the end of the minute, the mast was still standing, but the brain of the radar station was already dead. At 5:10, Charlie fought through the center fire control block. Iranian forces had turned over metal lockers into a barricade and were firing through gaps with AK-74 rifles. Charlie did not stop. A shaped charge went onto the center brace. The blast folded the lockers backward. Charlie rushed through sparks and smoke. 6 Iranian defenders were killed. One Marine took fragments in the arm but stayed in the fight. At the same second, Delta Element reported movement on the North Road. A reinforcement group of 28 Iranian troops in 2 trucks and 1 light armored vehicle was racing toward the base from the oil terminal side. Delta fired a Javelin missile and destroyed the armored vehicle. The 19 Malawian Quachars grenade launcher ripped into the lead truck. An M2 Browning taken from a disabled gate position tore through the second truck. The relief force never reached the walls. At 5:14, Alpha reached the second missile pad. Iranian forces had 17 guards around the pad, the reload shelter, and the launch console pit. One Marine team climbed the service catwalk beside the launcher. Another pushed through the reload shelter under 18 Malawian Quachars CQBR fire. A Marine fired short bursts into the console pit. The rest kept shooting until Alpha closed the distance and broke the position. By 5:17, Alpha controlled both south missile pads and the launch controls. At 5:18, Bravo moved from the radar platform into the west barracks roofline. Iranian forces had regrouped in 2 connected buildings and were firing from windows toward Charlie's route. Bravo crossed the roof edge by edge, dropped a grenade through a stairwell opening, and entered from above. The first room held 6 guards and 1 PKM machine gun. The next hall was blocked by metal bunks and storage lockers. A breacher placed C4 on the center pile and detonated it. The path opened. Bravo pushed through, cleared the barracks, and then blew the final ladder well door with a shotgun breach. At 5:22, Charlie entered the plotting room and central fire control chamber. The Iranian forces had 13 guards and 7 technicians inside. 2 guards were heading toward a protected console that linked the base to the launch pads and to coastal radar farther north. Charlie fired first. The lead guard fell beside the console. Another team hit a PKM position behind a map table with grenades and rifle fire. In less than 90 seconds, the guard line collapsed. Charlie secured the guidance consoles, radio racks, and firing boards. U.S. Marines now controlled the nerve center of the coastal defense base. At 5:26, Delta Element reached the buried bunker entrance on the north side. The outer blast door was already closing. 2 Marines jammed a steel bar into the track. A breacher pressed a shaped charge against the lower locking plate. The blast bent the rail and froze the door half open. Delta moved inside at once. The entry corridor turned right into a security desk and then dropped toward the underground command rooms. Iranian forces had built a quick barricade from filing cabinets and crate stacks. Delta answered with M240B bursts down the center and a fast flank through a side maintenance hall. 4 Iranian defenders were killed. 3 were wounded and captured. Delta kept moving toward the lower bunker before anyone inside could destroy the command archive. At 5:30, the U.S. Marines had footholds across every key part of the base. Alpha held both missile pads and the south launch sector. Bravo controlled the radar platform and the west barracks roofs. Charlie had taken the fire control chamber, the fuel yard, and the generator block. Iranian forces were still fighting, but no longer as one defense. At 5:32, Iranian forces made their hardest counterattack from the center barracks and the pump yard. 26 troops moved under PKM cover toward Charlie's position while 9 more tried to retake the south pads from Alpha. Charlie met the first push with M249 Sawfire and M4A1 SOP Mod 2 bursts from both ends of the hall. Alpha joined from the missile sector with 18 Malawian Quachars CQBR carbines firing across the open lane. The crossfire broke the attack in less than 2 minutes. 11 Iranian soldiers were killed. The rest dropped behind concrete blocks and stopped moving forward. At 5:36, Delta reached the bunker command room. Through a glass panel, the Marines saw officers around radios, oil terminal maps, and shipping boards. 8 guards were building a last barricade from desks and steel cabinets. Delta fired through the glass. Then Delta sent 2 Marines through a side corridor shown on a wall layout. The side team blew the access lock with C4 and attacked from behind. 4 guards were killed. 4 were wounded and captured. Delta pulled 12 officers and technicians away from the radios and shut down the bunker repeater network. 1 room deeper sat the backup link to the island's oil export pumps and the emergency power transfer board for the coastal base. Delta secured both. Iranian forces could no longer restore power to the radar or reconnect the launch pads. At 5:40, Alpha and Bravo completed the last surface clearance. Alpha searched the reload shelter and found 6 spare anti-ship missile canisters, fire control manuals, and coded launch cards. Bravo fixed thermite charges across the radar processors, antenna drives, range computers, and roof relay boxes. Charlie shut down the generator yard and locked 14 captured technicians and guards into one concrete maintenance room under watch. Delta gathered bunker documents, hard drives, and signal logs into sealed bags. All primary objectives were now in U.S. Marine hands. The base was still standing, but it was already silent at the systems level. At 5:44, demolition teams moved fast. Thermite charges went onto missile rail motors, launch consoles, radar drives, generator turbines, pump controls, and command servers. More thermite was fixed across the spare missile canisters in staggered lines to force a rolling burn instead of one giant blast. C4 went onto bunker radios, switch panels, fuel valves, and the power transfer boards. Iranian forces made one final attempt from the North Road at 5:46. 32 troops from a nearby island security post moved toward the gate under PKM cover and 1 surviving RPG-7. Delta hit them first with 11 Malawian Quachars Mod 0 fire. Bravo then joined from the west roof with M4A1 SOP Mod 2 carbines and an M240B machine gun. The attack broke in under 2 minutes. 10 Iranian troops were killed. The rest fell back behind the road berm and never closed the gap. At 5:50, Alpha withdrew from the missile pads with 5 captured launch technicians and 3 intelligence cases. At 5:52, Bravo moved off the roofline with radar records and 4 wounded prisoners. At 5:54, Charlie shut down the last live generator and pulled out with 14 technicians and fuel staff. At 5:56, Delta left the bunker with 12 officers, sealed drives, and signal logs. The base was full of alarms, smoke, and dust. Then 2 Marines carried a wounded teammate with a leg injury across the east yard. Another Marine with a shoulder wound walked out on his own. No U.S. Marine was left behind. At 5:59, the first demolition sequence fired. Thermite burned through the radar drives and command racks. Missile launcher motors seized and cracked. Generator turbines twisted to a stop. Then the C4 charges exploded. The first blast tore through the bunker radio room. The second ripped open the fuel valve section. The third shattered both south launch consoles and collapsed part of the north entry tunnel. Fire rolled out of the west barracks roof. Smoke punched into the sky above Kharg Island. At 6:04, CH-53E Super Stallion helicopters landed in a cleared strip 1 kilometer east of the base while a destroyer and 2 patrol craft covered the water approaches. By 6:09, all 88 Marines, 35 prisoners, and captured intelligence material were aboard. The helicopters lifted off and turned southeast over the Gulf. Iranian reinforcements reached the outer wire at 6:16. They found dead radar screens, burning missile revetments, shattered bunkers, disabled pumps, and silent control rooms across the base. The final cost was severe. The U.S. Marines suffered 3 killed and 12 wounded. Iranian forces suffered 91 killed, 58 wounded, and 35 captured. The Marines destroyed 2 anti-ship missile launch pads, 1 primary radar mast, 1 buried command bunker, 6 spare missile canisters, 3 generator turbines, 1 fuel pump control yard, 2 trucks, 1 light armored vehicle, 2 DSHK heavy machine guns, 1 Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft gun, and coastal defense systems valued at about $268 million. Iran believed Kharg Island, the cliff defenses, and the oil terminal security network made the coastal base untouchable. What actually happened was shorter, harder, and final. In 79 minutes, U.S. Marines broke the defense, silenced the base, and left the oil hub blind on its own shoreline. Sometimes the strongest defense is not enough when U.S. Marines decide it needs to be taken.